The Shadow Cat King decided to attack a seemingly defenseless and weak squad, full of morale, but forgot that the protagonist was among them. Just as the beast was about to attack the squad, the students sitting on the ground are caught by surprise as they see the beast suddenly struck. Immediately after, we are shown the one responsible for the attack, a small turtle. Some of the other students question what this small but extremely powerful being is. The redhead is also confused, but the student in the background notes that it closely resembles Subai's beast, Xiaoba. And so it is. The protagonist appears in the background, saying he enjoyed Xiaoba's glorious entrance, but adds that there's still room for improvement, as it was a bit strange. And both with a pose of warriors ready for battle, the protagonist says he is the beast tamer, Subai, and Xiaoba is his familiar. He then tells the students to take care of the smaller monsters because Subai and his familiar will put the king to sleep. Knocking down the king of cats with the turtle, that was impossible, but it became possible to bring down the king of cats. However, Suba doesn't have much time to stay here talking with this group, so he asks Sha to advance and then descends with full force on this king of cats. Nevertheless, no one is surprised as our protagonist has a turtle, and on top of that, the turtle is very fast. Meanwhile, the commander is surprised to see that our hero's turtle is facing a beast like that head-on. Suba's display of animals was indeed a bit different, so the commander turns to his group and asks everyone to attack the Cat King, since Suba had done the main job of distracting the Cat King. Thus, the group ends up obeying the order, attacking all the monsters around them. But at that moment, the King of Cats ends up grabbing our turtle. By capturing the turtle, he then comes up with the brilliant idea of scratching, destroying, and tearing apart Suba. However, when the Cat King thinks about doing this, his claws end up completely breaking. Shawa, on the ground, feels delighted and starts laughing at the Cat King's face. Meanwhile, the commander from afar widens his eyes in surprise, seeing that a creature of such an abnormal level managed to defend against one of the most powerful attacks of this Cat King. But the commander doesn't have time to stay shocked. He asks his group to protect him while he also deals with that Cat King. With that said, he advances toward the Cat King with the sword in his hand, heading directly for the Cat King's abdomen, as he knew that this might be its weak spot. Thus he prepares and asks for the Cat King to fall from the strike, hitting its back squarely. But even that wasn't enough to destroy or even injure the Cat King. As a result, the Cat King counterattacks the commander, throwing him backward. But even that wasn't enough to defeat him. He gets up and attempts another attack. At this moment, the commander is about to make his final strike, but already our hero asks Suba to use his ultimate move, the last and fastest attack he has. The group looks at Shawa and doesn't quite understand what he is trying to say. Looking closely, they notice that Suba's turtle was spinning steadily in one spot. After spinning a bit, we observe Suba preparing a kick and then hitting Shawa squarely. After this kick, we observe the turtle flying in a direction, towards the Cat King. But the Cat King was about to counter the commander. However, before the Cat King could do anything, the turtle hits the Cat King squarely, delivering a great blow, breaking half of its face, and sending it flying backward. Now that this happened, the commander says that he struck the weak point of this Cat King. They ask if the Cat King will still survive. Survive? I don't even know, as the Cat King spits out some blood, unable to even move properly on the ground. Then the rest of the students and the turtle advance a little further. At that moment, we observe that the turtle managed to defeat the Cat King. Everyone in the group finally jumps with joy now that they've killed it. Finally, everyone could be happy. Then we observe our hero's friend, who jumps into his arms, delighted to see he had enough strength to defeat a Cat King. Now that it's over, everyone approaches our hero and asks where he got a turtle like that, and if he knows where they can find one, as they want one too. However, our hero ends up remembering that he must not forget to remove the... Suba once again looks at Shawa and grabs a crystal, but he was about to devour it when... So he asks that Chawar would not devour that and return to him and deliver that to him at the moment he would think about it. The commander looks up, where suddenly he notices that it started to rain. On the other side, our Chawa decided to want to devour that magical stone. However, The cat, before dying, ended up roaring upwards, which means it was calling a monster much more dangerous than him. So, his group can no longer stay around here. Thus, the scene is already cut to the basic operations center, where they managed to detect that on the front line there were many dangerous beasts. But on the front line, there was basically Roland's daughter. So he asks to protect at least his daughter. He said he would do this. However, to have more precise help, he would basically call for more support. He said it was unnecessary since he alone could handle any monster in this universe by himself. But there are those weak beasts. So he asks for 20 minutes. 20 minutes for his men to go there and deal with the rest of the weak beasts. Then he ends up choking and feeling nervous, thinking this was terrible. If Roland went mad, yangs of the dangerous monsters, he wouldn't even be able to handle it or find anyone in the world who could face a monster like that. On the battlefield, we then observe a dark cloud. Within that cloud, we then observe the monster saying that they were very stupid. Some do not understand why a beast like this had the possibility to speak like a human. So, this group asks their entire group to form protection and thus protect themselves from such danger that is advancing. Now that this monster has appeared, it approaches the creek. At this moment, it gets irritated to see that an inferior species was devouring and destroying this superior species. Out of nowhere, we then observe that this monster was actually devouring that king of cats. However, this beast that just appeared ends up being dangerous because even the system appeared, saying that this beast is another 5-star beast, so he must be careful. But now he discovers what beast this was. This was a golden-level beast. Being an extremely powerful beast, it possesses a specific ability called Baker, which, when injured, enters this mode. Then it uses all its power and attacks anyone and anything in its path. The students now give up on life. They see that not even the most powerful teacher in their classroom could stand against this monster. But at this moment, the commander asks them to run and seek help as quickly as possible and take the wounded along with them, as he will deal with this beast from here. However, he didn't have much time with it, as we observe that the golden-level beast quickly destroyed and knocked down that commander. Thus, we observe there that the beast was attacking the commander again. Sua, seeing this, asks Shupa to take care of protection. Then the turtle goes there, and at the moment that golden-level monster attacks the commander, the turtle steps in to protect the commander. However, it ended up pulling its paw back. Yet this time, the turtle could not defend itself so well since the claws of this monster were not broken like those of the Cat King. However, the turtle's defense was extremely high, but not enough to defend against this monster's claw, as minutes later, we observed that the turtle ended up being cut by the claw of this golden-level monster. The fallen commander shouts for Shalar to hold on a bit longer and wonders if he was really okay now, if he was really going to be okay. As soon as the turtle was wounded, at that moment, our hero also ends up being injured. Subai, hurt. We can only see her reaction to the injury. Our hero, the other one, the teacher, wonders how he managed to get hurt. For that, the commander ends up answering that he is a tamer, and it is very likely that he made a direct connection with the turtle. But now that she approached, the teacher did not see any deep wounds or anything of the sort, but the system screen appeared to us, saying that our pet's current condition was critical, and for that, he needed to activate the tamer's talent. At that moment, he also informs his group that he was fine. As soon as he said he was fine, the teacher stands up since Supai was suffering at the hands of that supreme cat in front of her. So, for this, he asks everyone to help, to provide support. The other one said yes. Since Suai was giving her best, he also had to give his best. But it was a mistake to do this, as the cat even asks them to come forward. The request was made. They advance, the whole group. But at the moment, some shadows cross and run toward our hero's group. So Supai wouldn't be hurt even more. She jumps in front of the attack. With this, she wanted to take the entire attack. At that moment, something strange was about to happen. An odd aura appears. She is even surprised. The damage that our turtle had received just now had already been healed. At this moment, the turtle not only recovered from that damage, but also managed to reach bronze level. From this, the turtle gains new abilities. One of these is the turtle barrier, which can gather a good amount of aura for defense. Another is H, which can cover her entire body, increasing her attack by 100%, and both defense and damage increase by 200%. At this moment, a giant H emerges from our turtle. That aura was so immense it left everyone at the sight stunned. Even the teacher could not believe that his beast ended up making those super upgrades. The other one, the commander, only sees now that our Subai has an epic-level beast. Subai at the moment then stands up, but she asks him to rest a little longer, since his previous wounds had not even recovered yet. However, Subai was fine. Then he points toward the monsters and asks Subai to do a great job. At this moment, the turtle advances, rushing forward, pushing that somewhat fierce kitten aside with small attacks. Like this, our Subar with Suba Beast managed to expel such a powerful beast with such ease. But not only did they do this, but now they also obtained an extremely good lineage for Suba's turtle. In addition to having the bronze level in their beast, Suba also managed to defeat the Regato. This was surprising, but that little shove our turtle gave was not enough, as she stopped with her sharp claws on the ground. At the moment, while she was about to do something, we observed that the monster started to become somewhat enraged. It only wanted everyone here to die. Everyone asks them to gather in one corner only, as the beast now became dangerous. The groups only thought of escaping, but the beast would not allow this. For this, it ends up multiplying. Several different kittens then head in all directions. However, the group asks each of them to stop these monsters, but nothing happens. So for this, Suba asks XAOBA to take care of these monsters. Said this, then the turtle ends up activating a gloomy aura. At this moment, this aura ends up echoing in all directions. The beasts that were about to catch one of the extras quickly stop. They cannot move for even a single minute so as not to be pulled toward our turtle's mouth. They start clinging to everything in front of them. But the strength of our XAOBA was very powerful. Those monsters that were about to attack, extras were all sucked into his mouth, and with the bite, only Chawa began to swallow and chew all of that. But for having consumed so much power, this was dangerous. Suba then asks Zhaoba to release all that power concentrated there after devouring those small beasts. But at that moment, Suba then uses that breath of his and heads toward the Regato, which was trying to torment their lives. That energy was extremely powerful, so powerful that it was enough to completely destroy that king of the cats. After the destruction of that cat king, we then observe, in the middle of the forest, an unknown person jumping between the trees, but this person ended up arriving a little late. This is the same guard who was hired to protect that future wife, or rather girlfriend, of our protagonist. While staying in the background, just observing, they only watch the extras below pointing directions, asking to take care of the wounded, and also clean up the entire area to remove all the dangerous monsters that were around. At this moment, he advances and gets closer to the lady he was supposed to protect and asks if she is okay. She, completely safe and well, says she is fine. The guard is even curious about why she is here, but at the moment, the commander appears and ends up saying that his group had a tough battle against some monsters, and his squad cooperated only to make sure that the cats heading their way were defeated. But they managed to kill 800 cats from Neor, including several bronze-level monsters, one silver level, and another one of gold level. At the moment, some of the wounded were basically in danger, and now that it was all over, they were just taking care of the injured. This man ends up being a bit surprised to see that a gold-level creature appeared. He is happy to see that the commander's strength was indeed surprising, but he ends up telling him not to be so pleased with his victory, because if it was truly that gold-level beast, it wasn't him. Instead, it was Sa. He turns and asks if it was Sa who killed the king of the cats. He says it was yes. With his effort alongside Suba, they managed to defeat that gold-level beast. The man who saw Suba's potential wastes no time and wonders that upon finishing his time studying at this school, if Suba continues, it's very likely that he will become a very powerful and important person in this university. However, Suba still does not know what his decision will be. At this moment, the commander appears, telling this man that the entire area here has been cleaned up. Then he asks for instructions, and he only asks everyone to return to the base. Agreeing, they return to the base. Some portals then appear, but outside, there were many people interested in knowing what happened to the heroes. While everyone was leaving in the background, we observe the commander and the teachers happy with the new students who accomplished this feat. One of these students was Sa, who, with the training he has in mind, could make Suba one of the most powerful people in this university, but also with training, he could make him the most powerful in the world. Now that everyone returned, Sa is overjoyed along with his future girlfriend. But at this moment, looking ahead, everyone then ends up sort of showing their faces, saying that now that the heroes have returned, they welcome them for coming back healthy and alive for everyone to see. However, the one who ended up considering himself the hero ends up placing his hand on his head and says, "Hero? Me? Not no. Who is a true hero was Suba, because without Suba in this fight, it is very likely that they would not have returned alive. Some are even happy to see that they still returned, but returned alive. Now that they are back, one of the teachers approaches our hero and sees that he was literally a hero and perhaps will become the most powerful hero of this university. And besides that, he may not only become the strongest, but also might be entering history. However, our protagonist is not interested in that. He is interested in going back home, taking that cold shower and sleeping a little. So, we return to the dormitory, where we see his colleagues chatting, saying that today the bed feels a bit softer, as if it were giving them VIP treatment. They even think it might be because of his hard-working day, but another says no, as his small tasks wouldn't be exchanged for something as valuable as what they are experiencing here now. Then he gets up and asks Suba if, by any chance, he knows where he bought a turtle like that. He might be interested in buying one, seeing as our Suba was so solitary. It was also cute to see a little creature like him. However, Suba, on the other hand, only saw this new thing he was about to buy as an achievement. Perhaps this would be like conquering a 10 out of 10. But at this moment, while sleeping, they end up hearing someone knocking on the door. Our little red one then gets up and wonders who was knocking on the door at this hour. Opening the door, he is surprised. They had only come here to deliver some important things for a certain person, as this was made specifically for a special person. This was our Sunday. They had just come to deliver some impressive things for him. Opening the door, they enter. As they enter, the interested parties, I mean the girls, end up wondering who Suba was. But at this moment, looking fixedly at a bed, another from the back explains that this was Suba's bed, but he wasn't here at the moment. Now that Suba wasn't here anymore, they get irritated and then say that he took so long. He could have just said that Suba wasn't in the room, and since Suba was no longer here, they were going to take away their breakfast. Besides, now Suba has become a very famous person in this school. It was a pity that he didn't know her. Meanwhile, the scene cuts to our hero who was running here. While running, he saw the news on the screen saying that in recent days, very powerful monsters appeared and invaded their military base, and thus ended up destroying a good part of Suba's military base. But for some reason, they found someone on their base who managed to defeat one of these powerful beasts that were attacking. In this fight against these monsters, several students from Suba's school ended up being defeated by these monsters. But even so, this Jew university fought fiercely against the monsters. And yet, one of these bronze-level monsters and one gold-level one, among other powerful beasts, were defeated by a single person. This person was Soar. He quickly managed to clear the front line of the monsters, and by achieving such a feat, he ended up being noticed by several important people in this world. And not only that, but the Zenzu school also gained a bit more recognition than it already had, and now, some of the commanders finally decided they want to be delivering to these students who fought against the monsters some gold medals, but this commander will be delivering to a certain person first. This certain person was Suba. At this moment, it is revealed that Su managed to defeat some quite powerful beasts. Everyone who was at the place where our hero was became surprised, and then they saw our hero. Since also at this moment these guys who are here will be receiving a gold medal, and all this now was thanks to him. Some were happy about the medals, but the girls were happy about something else, wanting to make our protagonist their boyfriend. But well, if he stays around here, he will attract a lot of attention, so he hides behind a wall until he receives a call from his sister, who is happy to see him on TV. Meanwhile, his parents and his mother just want him to return so he can arrive and receive congratulations firsthand, but he said he wasn't in the mood at the moment. However, his parents and his mother somehow even managed to arrange a relationship for our hero, but he ignores this since, at the moment, his sister says that because he gained good fame, people are eager to recognize our hero and also his family. Knowing that it was dangerous to be alone now, our hero ends up saying that in a few days, he will be leaving this place where he is just to visit his family again. Then, 2 days pass. Arriving home, he is somewhat surprised to see that everyone was there waiting for his return. Now everyone is happy and content that Sue has finally come back. Some just chat with Suba, but another appears in the background. It was his sister, who shows up just to give that posted thanks for the new life they have. But at the moment, some there then end up inviting Sue to come to their house to eat some things. One from over there even invites our Suba to come to their house to eat a grilled turtle. But to dismiss everyone, the protagonist's father shows up and says that later he will be visiting their homes. At the moment then, some stop with the chatting about eating at home. There they end up wanting to introduce their granddaughters or whatever children they have to our protagonist. Now that Suba entered, he feels kind of happy, but also thinks he should have come back at night, until his sister says that it wouldn't have helped since their aunt had set up some cameras to watch over our hero. Well, now that he has arrived, he can finally rest. The father of our MC will make a good meal, and while this happens, he sits on the couch at his house. But just as he wanted to rest, the system screen appears, saying that it detected a quite powerful creature. Now the system gives him the option to tame that creature to be his own. Looking closely, he realizes that this creature was a kitten. While looking at the system, his sister shows up, so he asks his sister if by chance there was a cat in their house. She points in another direction and says yes. There in front, a kitten. She ended up finding the kitten abandoned, and so in the end, she decided to take the kitten to be hers and is now taking care of it. So since his sister liked the kitten, there's nothing else to do, until he approaches again and sees the kitten's statistics. This kitten had a quite peculiar talent, as its talent gives 100% attack speed to its host, and also increases its attack power by 100%. Knowing that this beast staying with him would allow him to defeat many powerful monsters, he ends up approaching his sister and but Light interrupted his words, ending up saying that if this was widely used, all its advantages could be improved. Angelo then placed his hand on his tank and asked not to worry about it, as it wasn't something that could be mass-produced. That tank was the only one he had to carry, and the fact that it was heavy or even bulky was a disadvantage. But Angelos was confident that with it, he could go as far as possible. SL, not understanding what all of this meant, asked Angelo if he could go, and then he raised his head and explained how he could reach incredible power heights. And with that, his eyes opened with such happiness. He didn't know how to respond. He didn't know what more a young man with the title of a great sage could do. But one thing was certain. If our dear protagonist would really reach the peak of his power by the end of this story, we will unfortunately have to find out. Continuation time for you all. Our story now unfolds inside the principal's office. The principal congratulates our protagonist for the honor of having defeated those powerful monsters, and as a result, they managed to achieve a much higher rank in their military base. Because of this, the school decided to reward our hero. The principal then asks Subar to choose whatever he wants. Subar thanks the principal for his kindness, and he even heard rumors that the principal was a genuinely nice person. However, Subar also knew that the principal had a reputation for making things harder for others. Knowing that asking for food for his team would be difficult, Subar says he doesn't want to cause too much trouble for the school or drive it into bankruptcy. But since the principal insists, our protagonist doesn't refuse. he boldly requests 100 gold-level beast cores. At that moment, the principal's jaw drops, and sweat appears on his face. 100 gold-level beast cores? That was impossible. The principal explains that even if he broke countless bones trying, he could never manage to get those 100 gold cores. He even suggests that Subar choose the position of principal as a reward instead. Subar, realizing the principal's struggle, decides to lower his request to 50 silver-level beast cores. The principal, now understanding the situation he's in, remarks that Subar did something that a human normally wouldn't do, something as powerful as protecting the weak. Indeed, what Subar had done most was to protect the weaker students so they wouldn't perish on the battlefield. The principal, however, reiterates that even 50 silver-level beast cores are far too much and urges Subar to choose something else, pointing out that the level Subar had just reached by defeating those beasts wasn't enough to warrant such a reward. Nevertheless, the principal assures Subar that he could achieve such things in the future. Our protagonist, however, knows the principal is hard to convince, so he reduces his request to 50 silver-level beast cores. The principal, sensing the difficulty, praises Subar's humanity, but insists on lowering the reward. Finally, after a long negotiation, the principal offers Subar 15 bronze-level beast cores, stating that this is the highest number he's willing to provide. It's a take-it-or-leave-it deal. After a tense back and forth, Subar reluctantly accepts, realizing the principal is far from foolish. Though Subar didn't get exactly what he wanted, he sees that the principal knows how to play his cards. After handing over the agreed-upon reward, the principal reveals something important. Subar has been selected by the school to represent the first-year students in the 100 Schools event. Subar is confused as to why he, of all people, was chosen for this prestigious competition. It then dawns on him why the principal had been acting so amicably earlier. However, the principal quickly denies being nice, explaining that Subar's role as a student is to participate in events like these to bring more credibility to their school. Additionally, the school would gain valuable resources from the event, which could benefit Subar as well. The principal warns that many people will be competing in the 100 Schools event, and the odds of someone like Subar making it to the final stage are slim. However, the director, the cowardly student then, will be participating in the event the next day. He will basically be in his room the day before, so he asks him to go to his room to rest, since nowadays it was basically difficult. They brought experienced students and many geniuses to their school. But at this moment, he realizes that the principal was, as the rumors said, literally an old fox that hunts its prey until it can no longer escape. The next day, in the courtyard, he ends up affirming that the school event happens only once a year, although a certain principal hadn't invested more in it. They end up putting their trust in the idea that if he went to this event and gave it greater credibility, more good investments would come to the school and the students. Meanwhile, they make a roll call, but we don't care much about the roll call. After that, someone comments that they are basically being wronged because we notice that they were one of the first schools. However, even being one of the first, they don't receive the rightful credit. The girl even said she heard rumors that their school has a very low ranking, but then they continue to call the students, calling Subar. After everyone was called, the principal ends up affirming that everyone is here. Then he ends up saying that he will now present the students who will be representatives. So he asks the representatives to come forward, but this year, there will be something different. There won't just be 2 representatives. There will now be a leader, and this leader will be Subar. As soon as he says this name, the 2 guys look at our protagonist and can't believe it. Then one of them goes to confront the chubby one, saying that a certain guy there and another one were more experienced in this group, and there's no way to make our protagonist the leader of this group. They basically can't do anything anymore because the principal even affirmed there that Subar was chosen by the higher-ups, and it couldn't be changed anymore. Also, because it is exactly Subar, he will basically lead his class to victory in this school event. Since this one, whom he is pointing at, ends up being the oldest and most experienced student, the principal, fed up, ends up affirming that Subar killed a gold-level beast. And if by chance they wanted to change the leader, it would basically mean someone there had to kill a gold-level beast. Even so, after hearing this, someone says, "I don't believe it. How did Subar kill a gold-level beast? This could be a trap he set up." Another one who ends up overhearing the conversation steps in, saying that it's true, there's no way Subar could have defeated such a powerful beast. Then he challenges our protagonist to a fight, but to satisfy these guys' thirst for a fight, he ends up affirming that they were right. Maybe the old man up front is crazy for having chosen him as the team leader. Meanwhile, the old man kept moving forward, while Subar wondered if the old man was trying to make him the target of the entire school. In the meantime, he affirms that 20 days will be enough for him to rest and prepare. While Subar was running, seeing that he couldn't stay there, the guys were surprised by his speed. After escaping completely and successfully, they couldn't believe how Subar managed to defeat a gold-level beast. "You're such a coward!" But the one who saw all this ends up affirming that sooner or later he will be calling him for a fight. Meanwhile, elsewhere, already at the university, he ends up taking those 15 bronze-level beast cores out of his bag. He saw that the old man kept his word, and now this is for our Shar reached the next level. And as he placed food in the bowl at the moment he was about to eat, the white kitten ended up getting in the way to eat as well. However, Shar asked him to wait, and while waiting, he placed another bowl beside it with his meal. At that moment, he noticed that the little white kitten had a very low level, so he gave the kitten a purified blood essence. However, this left the turtle a little disappointed since she wanted some as well. But by giving this to the turtle too, Shar would be helping her significantly. Yet, he felt sad, seeing that a single bite the turtle took cost him a few million coins from his account. So he ended up placing silver-level beast cores in the bowls for both the kitten and the turtle. At that moment, the turtle and the white kitten seemed to approve of the meal, saying it was marvelous. However, it was the turtle who started eating first, and upon doing so, she began evolving. A bright, intense light emerged, but something else happened. Tremors spread everywhere, startling the students at the school, who asked what had just happened. At that moment, after giving those pills, the system appeared, announcing that the turtle had leveled up. She gained a new talent. The first was the Mystic Barrier, which creates a defensive shield with the power of Xuan, increasing defense by 500%. The second talent, Spirit Pressure, consumes a bit of energy to enhance Xuan's energy, increasing attack power by 200% and defense by 300%. Our Shar didn't gain many stats or abilities, but this was already enough for him. Looking at the little white kitten, however, Shar saw that it had gained some new abilities. One of these was Claw Strike, which when activated consumes a bit of energy to increase attack speed by 100%. The second ability, Bloodlust, is activated by consumption, increasing resistance, and boosting attack power by 100%. It also amplifies critical hits by 500%, causing much more severe injuries to opponents. At this point, Shar crouched down, saying that both had leveled up, and beyond that, the white kitten now had exceptional speed, granting it considerable advantages in certain events. At that moment, the protagonist looked at the system screen, showing the excellent talents these little creatures had acquired. He realized now that he should showcase these new, amazing companions. A new event was approaching, a competition involving 100 schools. Our story then continues with our protagonist the next day in the library. As soon as he arrives, he is amazed by its size. The owner of the place, overhearing this, mentions that this is indeed the oldest library in the school, meaning that everything within it is first-hand knowledge. At the moment, our hero was searching for books on tamers. The owner pointed him in the direction where such books were located, and he advanced, finding a section filled with them. He had initially thought there was only one book on tamers, but realizing there were many, he assumed it would take him a long time to go through them. However, he found one titled Lo Fan. He even thought he had heard that name somewhere before. As he began reading, he discovered that heaven and earth had essentially merged into one, transforming half of it into a soul, enabling beasts to rise above the rest. He continued reading this fascinating story, but then started walking in another direction, eventually coming across the same group that had previously disagreed with the protagonist about their leader. Recognizing our hero, but another says there that they shouldn't be paying attention to this loser because being a tamer in this world wasn't such a good thing. Well, they are here in front, while he stands with his mouth open at this low fan for having created several new abilities. For instance, he created 3 abilities from legendary beasts, and these abilities ended up turning weak beasts into legendary ones. But at that moment he realized he was stronger and even fought against some beasts at the beginning of an invasion. However, in the end, he was overwhelmed by the number of beasts that came, and eventually, he ended up dying. Still, he needed to see what was happening in this book. Suddenly, the book began to float, and a light emanated from it. At that moment, he wondered what was happening or why the book's energy was flowing into his body. After some time, he went to the library, where he asked this woman here to lend some books to our protagonist. But as soon as she saw this book, she was surprised to see that it basically didn't have a label. She then thought about destroying the book because, to her, books that served no purpose were worthless. She started trying to tear the book apart to end it, but after exhausting her attempts, she tried to open it, yet it wouldn't open. This was surprising, as just a moment ago he had been reading the book. Then, as it was placed in his hands, he opened it effortlessly. She even thought that this book might be damaged. She eventually decided to lend him the book without any issues. After taking the book, he simply thanked her and left. However, after some time, she ended up calling a certain person and mentioned that the book left on the shelf had somehow been opened by him. She even affirmed that yes, she had seen it with her own eyes. Then the director didn't need to worry anymore, which was a very good thing. Meanwhile, after some time, he felt happy because the person Lo Fan had been waiting for finally appeared after 100 years. And if, by chance, he was still in the underworld, perhaps he would be happy to know that now a new guy had appeared to replace him. 2 weeks later, we observe the event happening, and today, an inter-school event will take place where participants will have to participate in a battle royale. As schools begin to arrive, students and other influencers begin to appear to give their greetings. Meanwhile, the students start ignoring those people who were trying to get their attention. Even though they were trying to attract attention, it didn't work. They simply ignored them. After that, in good time, we observe the scene cutting to another location, already at the main event, where many people were basically looking at an empty field. Then we cut to another scene, where we find the group of our hero. They were worried because Subar hadn't appeared. Some even said he had given up, but not really, as he appeared at the last minute. Right then, the teacher, looking at him, already noticed that something had changed in our protagonist, even in such a short time. So the teacher approached him and said she would start organizing some things, otherwise the event would happen, and they would be unprepared. But he told her not to worry so much about it. Meanwhile, on the screen, a guy commented that these days, some powerful beasts appeared which took several students from his school or nearby universities, either drying up or even dying. Thus, in the end, they gathered the best school to try and discover which school was the strongest, designed so that later they can be putting these better guys out on the battlefield to get revenge on those beasts, as soon as the entire population watching gives up. It's madness. But today, a different event will be happening compared to the others. Today, there will be a team event where 5 people from your team can be chosen. There will be fights in rounds, the loser is eliminated, and the winner will continue in the event. Now that the basic information has been given to start participating in the events, they just ask for everyone to show up. Meanwhile, the director approaches the group of our hero, asking if he has already planned his strategy. He says yes, he will be the first to participate, while the rest will join on their own. However, his group disagrees, saying they basically needed to organize a better strategy because if he goes first and loses, it will be a huge embarrassment for their university. He says he won't disappoint them, while the director notices his level has increased significantly. Still, he approaches our hero, asking him to at least be a little smarter and not act the way he is. Or it's very likely this group in front of him will start to resent him even more. But here the scene cuts to a university where a guy kicked another out of the ring. Meanwhile, the teacher warns our hero that the Shinin University is quite strong, so they need to defeat Elgin University first, which will give them a significant advantage. Our hero tells them not to worry again, and so he moves forward. His girlfriend, our redhead, ends up giving him extra motivation in the ring. Now he ends up kind of recognizing our protagonist. He was the guy who killed some gold-level beasts. He then says he admires him, but our protagonist already knows his potential, so he says yes, it was him. And today, from here, we continue, and our story begins with this guy approaching our hero with the aim of showing the true power of a pet tamer, known more as Captain King Wan. Having the bronze class, he would try his luck. Meanwhile, on the other side, our protagonist ends up pulling out his chua from his backpack. Right after taking it out, we observe him with no reaction. Well, he said this was his pet, and seconds later, he starts laughing until he can't anymore. But our hero ends up telling the turtle to hurry up today because today our protagonist hasn't even had breakfast yet, and if our turtle also wanted to have breakfast, it had to win faster. But also, the spectators watching the fight observe that turtle and then realize that the university our hero is part of is no longer the same as it used to be. While others mocked him, our professor wondered why our protagonist had a bag of peanuts in one hand and a Coca-Cola in the other, but others were wondering what he was doing down there. Meanwhile, his opponent, now a bronze-level guy, watched our hero eating, and he kept talking about how Shar ate plenty of beast cores. So now he asks that this Shar of his not embarrass him. Then it was said, and the turtle begins to emit a slightly stronger glow. The guy notices that this glow came from a dreadful aura and wonders how a human could tame something like that. However, the turtle then begins to transform into a slightly larger turtle. Now facing this giant turtle, he freezes completely. How is it possible for a weak, small turtle to transform into this primordial beast here? And those in the audience, seeing this new transformation, can't believe it. Some even stand up, others just watch as the turtle stopped playing and now wanted to fight a little more seriously. Others just see the turtle's shell, which to them looked more like a tank's armor or something like that. Now, seeing this beast, they believe that our T-Bar did indeed manage to kill a gold-level beast. Meanwhile, here, our hero's future wife just watches their strength, and his roommate ends up saying, "How did Suba get so big in minutes?" But our hero was tired of just watching, so he asks Suba to make the first move. Thus, it ends up being done. The guy then doesn't notice anything. What he does notice is the paw of our turtle hitting him. He's thrown backward, but after being thrown back and falling to the ground, he saw that the turtle was too fast. But before he was defeated, our hero asks him to hold on a bit longer because he hasn't drunk his cold Coke yet. He wants to savor it well, and then, irritated by what was just said, he gets up again. At that moment, thinking only of a strategy to catch the turtle by surprise, he realized he needed to become a bit stronger. For that, the thing he was holding in his hand begins to merge with his entire body. At that moment, now he transformed. In something extremely resistant, he wanted to find out who was more resistant, him or the turtle. But at that moment, he jumped. Minutes later, he was now more in front of the turtle. The people watching even thought it was the end of our Zhao Ba. However, what were they thinking? Because our Zhao Ba, with a simple movement, managed to throw that opponent out of the ring. At this moment, he was simply defeated with just one paw strike. Defeated. His group then remained confused. One stood with their mouth wide open, another just noticed that the fight was over. Well, it ended rather quickly. While his group praised him, the audience, on the other hand, was against our Suba. He kept saying how that guy couldn't dodge the turtle's paw strike. To him, it was simple, as from a distance, he could see that the turtle moved extremely slowly. This was quite fair to him. That guy deserved to lose. The reason he lost was due to speed against the turtle. But meanwhile, our hero's future wife tried to defend him, though it led to nothing. Soon after, we observed Carrara on the big screen saying, The first victory has arrived, but there are still more fights to come. Then, they introduced the new opponent of our hero. This new opponent was Zhang Shua, one of the best students from some university out there. At that moment, she had seen the earlier fight, so she knew what was needed to defeat that weak turtle in front of her. Her advantage was her speed. She just needed to trust it. So, as the fight began, she started hopping here and there. But our Zhao began to notice what she was doing, looking from one side to the other. Suddenly, we saw our turtle getting confused while the crowd went wild, realizing there might now be a worthy opponent for this turtle. She, however, saw that she only needed to find a way, just one way, to attack the turtle. If she managed to do that, she would easily win. For that entire time, Zhang Shua used her speed advantage to fool the turtle a bit. This made our Suba look like an idiot for underestimating his opponents. But as this was being said, we observed the face of our protagonist ignoring everything they were saying. While the turtle gave it their all, our protagonist was eating. At that moment, when the turtle saw that woman, it raised its paw and almost stomped on her. But she easily dodged that paw strike from our Zhao. Now she saw that after thinking so much, she had found the turtle's weakness. She then jumped to the side, aiming directly at our Suba. Her goal was to defeat Suba, because if he were defeated, the turtle would be defeated too. By now, it was too late. There was no way this slow turtle could make a defense to protect its tamer. At that moment, his teacher, our hero's future girlfriend or wife, was in disbelief, begging him to at least protect himself. Meanwhile, the girl only asked him to pay attention to her, but it was no use. The sword approached him, but that sword easily ended up being, throwing himself up high, our hero finishes his cold coat. After that, we observe what really happened. The turtle couldn't turn quickly to defend our hero, but who says you need the whole body to attack? The tail was enough. With just the tail, it managed to launch that girl backward. After that, the fury exposed our hero, leaving him only relieved. Meanwhile, his roommate realized he hadn't thought of this strategy, but the turtle had. At the same time, his group and his professor could see that he truly had potential, while those who mocked him were left in disbelief. But now, as he finished eating, there was nothing else to do. He approached the girl lying on the ground, and as he got closer, he told her to find a doctor to treat her wounds. She had no other choice but to stand up. He then ordered our Shah to finish off the rest, who obediently followed the hero's command. The doctors took her from there. Now that he had finished eating, he decided to take things a bit more seriously. He didn't want to play around anymore. His objective now was to win. So, he called out to the next fighters, who were somewhere in the audience, mocking him just moments ago, to step into the ring. Their goal, to try to defeat our hero. But neither the girl nor the guy before her had managed to win against him. Now, who would be able to send our protagonist to the stands, so he could at least rest? Minutes later, we saw the girl entering the ring. But Shah, in just a matter of minutes, or even seconds, managed to defeat her, sending her to the ground. Now that he had defeated the girl, our protagonist called for the next challenger to step into the arena. At that moment, another entered. But once again, our Shah easily managed to throw the player who had stepped into the ring backward. Meanwhile, our hero took selfies with the defeated fighters he had just vanquished. Half an hour later, we saw the guy from the big screen appear, announcing that this guy from the University of Suba had become the champion of this fight. While he explained all of this in the background, we saw our Shah claiming his final victory. He devoured an entire man in one bite without even choking. Now that the first person who won this championship had been announced, the audience was in disbelief. The very same person who had been eating peanuts and drinking Coke up until now had won this match. Another person noticed this, but our Suba was a bit arrogant, which somehow made her like our hero even more. Meanwhile, the audience was happy. Everyone was celebrating our protagonist. The scene shifts to him descending from the ring, listening to the crowd cheering. He had fought 5 people and defeated every one of them. Now that he had emerged victorious as he descended, he looked like a bastard for having won this championship without losing a single time. Now that he had finally defeated that group of people, or extras, in the background, he approached his group. The professor congratulated him. Those who, up until recently, had been restless seemed speechless. Our protagonist left them without words. They could say nothing more. Knowing that now he was the strongest in the group, our hero, meanwhile, said that only he had been lucky. However, here the teacher then ends up saying that now they could be going back to rest. Or rather, only our hero, because now they could be going to the hotel cafeteria where they could fill their stomachs as much as they wanted, since today, basically, the rank was paid by him. His group, knowing it was free, was already happy. But at this moment, the scene cuts to University F, where at that moment their coach appears, saying that Zanzu University at this moment was more problematic for them. So they should be a little more careful because if there is a fight, it's very likely that the other side will send Suba to join the game. Their problem wasn't even the other extras, but Suba himself, because he knew that Suba had that legendary beast, so there was no way to face Suba at the moment. Because of this, he ends up saying that to beat Zanzu University, Makai, Suba's next opponent, would basically have a bigger challenge. But at this moment, he ends up pointing in his direction and asks that when F fights, it is necessary to use some long-range defenses, but if he isn't winning, he should use a powerful poison. Meanwhile, at Shimu University, we then observe their coach there, saying for people not to get discouraged since Suba was the strongest. Meanwhile, others thought they were dealing with our hero a little later, but another one ends up appearing, saying that Zangu's objective, that girl from before, was very good. Like her speed, yes, it was great. Basically a weapon to defeat Suba's turtle. But her speed, let's say, wasn't one of the best. So someone faster is needed, and for that, he will be fighting against our Suba. His speed was very fast, so he could win like that. Then time passed a little later, and we observed that guy from before saying that the championship, a little earlier in the morning, was quite balanced. At one moment, our Lord commanded Chawa to hit, and another time he ordered them to beat the extra. And today, a slightly more random championship would be happening. But at this moment, the extras said that, well, the students from Zanzu University didn't even need to enter the ring because only Suba would be able to bring victory to this university. After a good time of conversation, we still observed on the big screen Carol choosing the schools that would be fighting against our Suba. And the first championship that would be happening would be against Zangu University and another X-Min. Well, the rest is the rest. But below, we then observed our hero in the ring. In the ring now, he begins to mock our hero's face, but also a little worried, already knowing that they sent the best from the group to fight him. He already knew he had to do his best, but on Suba's side, he just asked him not to get, I don't know, so worried about things. Oh, it could be such and such things. He asked Suba not to be thinking too much about it, but as Li Feng with the bronze rank at this moment, after warming up a little, he then starts running towards our protagonist. His speed managed to basically surpass that of the turtle. And so, after surpassing its speed, he then attacks some weak points of the turtle. His objective before was to hit its shell to see if he could break it, but nothing worked. At this moment, he knew he would be caught by the turtle's tail, so he jumps to the side. Now, to the side, the whole group starts to observe the moon. Some begin to say that Suba was no longer managing to be the strongest as before. Now, perhaps he would be defeated by this Lin Fang. And so, then thinking he had a chance to defeat Suba, the whole group of bystanders starts shouting for Lin Fang to finish Suba. At this moment, he starts running in his direction, but meanwhile, we observe the group of our hero, who merely notices that for some reason he was drawing the turtle a bit farther away. But our protagonist didn't even care about what was happening. He was looking for another cold soda. At the moment he searched and found it, he begins to drink it. Meanwhile, elsewhere, we observe Lin Fang dealing with the turtle, or trying to dodge its attacks. But now that he was a bit distracted, he starts looking in the direction of our hero. Upon looking, he notices that he basically doesn't have the turtle to protect him anymore. So he starts running in his direction, saying that Subai was being too arrogant and that Lin Feng would now end his arrogance. Then Lin Fang jumps, and now he was about to land a kick to his face. But at this moment, a yellowish wave begins to move in random directions. One of those lights hits this bystander, Lin Funk, who freezes mid-air and doesn't understand what was happening. But now that he looks back, he notices the turtle using its ancestry or something like that to paralyze its opponent. At this moment, the turtle starts to blow a puff of air in its direction. Lin Fang ends up sort of seeing all of this and starts pleading for him to give up, but now there was nothing else to be done. The turtle hits Liang squarely, throwing him into the middle of the audience. Now, among the crowd, some end up noticing that Suba was indeed being too arrogant. Even though he beats everyone, he still thinks it wouldn't compensate for being basically a fan of our protagonist. Meanwhile, the director in charge of this guy ends up realizing he made a pretty bad choice in picking him to go against Suba. Now that, unfortunately, that guy Lin Fang was defeated by our hero, his university was almost disqualified. And so, they begin selecting the next fighters. These next fighters were from Fushan University. While they were being introduced, we then observed the professor commenting about this University of Ka, saying that maybe strength wasn't needed to beat them. But another said it was indeed needed since this university also focused on poison. And so, the second round begins, but before it starts, he asks to wait a little while, and he starts saying that Suba was strong. But Majin wonders if he accepts him as his opponent, since he was also in the bronze classification. After hearing that, Subar finishes drinking his cold soda, and then he says that, okay, maybe he accepts, but for that, he might need to defeat our Suba in a fight. Our story today continues with him already recognizing Suba as a worthy opponent due to his strength. Thus, he ends up saying that Suba still wasn't a match for our protagonist. However, he wanted to discuss some important matters regarding tamers. At this moment, Suba was merely stalling for time to use his ability. Our protagonist even noticed this and commented that if he let Suba gain time, his poison would certainly grow stronger, as poison users typically take a long time to activate their abilities. He then called for Sha, asking Sha to deal with his opponent. But by the time he realized this game, it was already too late. Suba activated his poison ability. For him, it didn't matter what type of tamer his opponent was, divine level or otherwise. Once his opponent was trapped in his poisonous mist, there was no escape. The poisonous mist completely engulfed Suba. From behind, we see our protagonist stating that it was too late, and there was no way to avoid this. Returning to his group, they commented that Suba had been reckless once again, and that now he couldn't do anything to help Xiao Ba escape the poisonous mist. On the other hand, the professor wondered what Suba was doing, but the director told her not to panic since the outcome had not yet been decided. Meanwhile, in the fight, the turtle was essentially holding its breath to avoid inhaling the poison. Nearby, the venomous tamer was running past Xiao Ba, thinking Suba couldn't see him through the mist. However, Suba could see him and wondered how long he would endure this poisonous mist. Smiling, he said that Suba had been reckless, ignoring his venomous abilities. Once he activated this venom ability, the fight would only end when he won. While this was happening, he glanced toward Suba and noticed that Suba was cultivating. He mocked him, saying that such cultivation was useless since he wasn't just facing a poisonous mist. He then demanded that Suba die already. Leaping at Suba with claws in hand, he prepared an attack. But just as he moved to strike, a shield appeared, defending Suba. The clever protagonist already knew that this guy was planning to attack him from behind, but it was all in vain. His opponent couldn't believe it. It was impossible. How could Suba defend himself so easily, even against his most powerful claw attack? At this point, he wondered how Suba managed to defend himself while in the poisonous mist. From a distance, the director explained that this was a confluence of origin. Not understanding, we watched as the director clarified. What Suba had just activated was essentially a high-level talent of an animal tamer. Only high-level tamers could do this. Suba had learned to transfer the defense of his domesticated pet to himself. Meanwhile, the protagonist was growing tired of being surrounded by the poisonous mist. It was greatly hindering his vision. At that moment, he called for Sha to appear. Looking up, he saw the mysterious shadow of Sha. Soon after, from afar, we observed someone flying. The screen showed who it was. It was the opponent of our protagonist. Seeing this, Suba's roommate realized how powerful Suba was since he managed to defeat a poison-type user of the venomous mist. Our future bride commented that Suba was incredibly strong, but to reach his level that to get a little stronger. Meanwhile, we observe then the people who previously did not believe in the potential of our little protagonist are happy for the victory. Meanwhile, we see everyone shouting the turtle's name, but on the screen that presenter appears again. He ends up saying that the school University City Marcel Fuchan can no longer participate in the fight, and it is decided that they will automatically be disqualified from this championship. So then, today, he announces the winner of this championship. He from the Zhangzhou School of Martial Arts, Suba, the winner of this championship. Meanwhile, everyone is happy about this, and our protagonist said it was easy. Well, winning this was easy, but as soon as he won, he gets off the stage where he meets the director. The director congratulates our protagonist, saying he will bring glory to the Zhangzhou University. But our protagonist didn't care about happiness or fame for his school. Instead, he wanted to know about some pills to help him in his cultivation, to make his pet even more overpowered and powerful. When he says this, the director realizes that the MC wanted to trick him, but he wasn't easy to deceive. So then, he points in another direction and comments that for having managed to win, and for having made the Zhangzhou Martial Arts University win this championship, the military will basically grant them some military merit points. So, pointing, he says he could go to a certain wardrobe where he will be receiving what he could have earned for winning the championship. Meanwhile, his group feels sad seeing that only Suba managed to win the championship, and only he participated. They wonder if they will gain some merit too for basically watching and giving emotional support to him. But then the director shouts that now everything is over, and in any case, in 3 days, they will head to the city of Lal to participate in the regional league. Now the director wonders if everyone is confident about their victory. The protagonist with his turtle is more than confident about this. However then, he ends up kind of saying that now he would be leaving, so he asks all the students here to rest since in 3 days, they will have to prepare for the regional league. So, as he was about to leave before he could do anything, our protagonist stops him and ends up kind of saying, and the matter of the resources, our protagonist didn't care about training or resting, he wanted good resources. The director already knew that the protagonist wanted to spend on him, so he ends up kind of saying that especially the protagonist needs to rest, as in 3 days he will be returning. He knows this old man was smart, but he needed it because his turtle was evolving at a slower pace. Meanwhile, outside the stadium, on the screen, we see someone announcing that the 100 Schools Provincial League has just ended, and that the top 3 schools that won were our protagonists among others there, since what was important was that this championship had many geniuses appearing, but among them was a prodigy, our Suba. He alone managed to win the championship by himself, and in 3 fights, he defeated everyone without even losing once, and with that, they wish good luck to this Suba, since by becoming this strong, his country will be safer. Meanwhile, some girls passing by noticed that they should try their luck with Suba. However, after a good day of walking, he finally arrives at his training room, where he realizes that his parents are finally here. Then he takes out of his backpack our little cat, and at the same time, shbad, there he ends up saying he couldn't make the little cat climb the stick in the previous fights. But today, he will have to climb the stick. He ended up, in the end, earning some military merits, and with that, he exchanged them for some beast cores. However, he asks our little cat, he took it, whereby taking it, he could evolve into a more powerful form, and at that moment, he grabs one of the pills he had in hand. As soon as he grabs that pill, he ends up placing it on the ground, where, minutes later, the little cat appears and bites it. But upon biting it, a bright and extremely strong light emerges from the little cat, startling our protagonist. A minute later, the system screen appears, saying that Hitten was a bronze-level monster, but he had evolved into a sharp golden-white tiger. The bloodline of the white tiger of the sacred abyss is activated, which ends up granting a strong sacred wind. However, realizing that the evolution had occurred, he is happy to see that it also activated its sacred bloodline. Knowing that this evolution was still not its maximum, he places some of the remaining pills on the ground. As soon as the little cat sees it on the ground, it runs to eat it. He ends up asking it to eat it calmly. Now that it has eaten, he wonders if it will be able to evolve once again. But after a long time, he realized that no reaction occurred. However, something was supposed to happen since the pills were high-level silver beast core pills. At this moment, thinking that nothing was going to happen, a bright and strong light appears in front of him. He gets startled by it. But as soon as he looks ahead, he is shocked to see an extremely large beast in front of him. Realizing how incredible the beast had transformed, we see him already saying that this transformation was better than the previous one, also gaining a new title. The system appears, stating that he ended up gaining some talents. The first talent is the sharp golden claws, which consumes a certain amount of energy, delivering 100% attack on a single enemy. And if by chance the little cat attacks several opponents at once, its attacks end up increasing its strength by 2%. The second talent is basically the sharp golden spirit, which consumes a certain amount of energy. However, now each attack carries a 200% tier effect, which can be enhanced with the sharp golden claws to significantly increase the damage inflicted on its opponent. Finally, the third talent is the golden phantom shadow, which drastically increases movement and attack speed by 300%. It can be used in combination with the sharp golden claws. Looking at the little cat's system now, he realized it was worth giving it those pills. At this moment, he approaches Zai and says that he is a good boy. The league will now depend on our little cat's performance. Meanwhile, the scene is cut to the imperial capital, where we see that Suba was basically drawing the attention of other people. And then he asks his servant to investigate this. He realizes that it is possible that this turtle of Suba was likely stronger and more scandalous than a certain Fandaloo from a certain time. After hearing this from his boss, he ended up obeying. But here, 3 days later, we see them participating in the regional league. This time, a certain university more powerful than the others will pose a slightly greater challenge this month, as a certain prodigy student appeared this year. Meanwhile, Subar looked around and noticed the championship was too big. Meanwhile, we observe our director saying they were trying to intimidate Lu, but our protagonist didn't care about that. He looked to a corner and noticed that a certain part of the stadium was empty. The director ends up saying that that certain area of the stands was reserved for some of the students from a certain university who decided to attend only as spectators. Since they also won this championship through brute strength, the director said they would be losing some military points. Our hero ends up saying he will not win through brute force since he doesn't want to lose some military points. With military points, he can buy beast cores. While that was happening, we observed one of his colleagues not really believing that Su-Ba was basically focusing on that, since this time everyone here participating in this field would basically have the opportunity to take part in the championship. Unlike last time, now they will have to wait a little, because they will need to wait for a draw. The boy ends up saying that they will draw lots for the universities that will be participating. Thus, the first draw revealed that it would be Low Marshall against University Versus and Futian Marshall against University Lin Vers. And so, the participants could start climbing into the ring, as the winners would have to fight against the University of Zhangzhou. Our protagonist would have to fight in the second round, which ends up catching his attention, knowing that he would have to wait a certain amount of time to finally participate in the championship. He feels sad about it, while the teachers tease him. However, they continue the test where the first university, Fukchan, is the first participant, defeating the other university, Lua Martial. The fight begins and takes several hours. 3 hours later, we then observe a girl announcing that the quarterfinals of the first round were completed, and now they were going to announce the results of the second round draw. The University of Zhangzhou was once again left out. Hearing this, everyone watching the championship became basically frustrated to see that the University of Zhangzhou had been left out of 2 fights, and they came here just to watch this fight. Some ended up pointing out that our protagonist wasn't doing anything, just sitting in the corner while eating peanuts and drinking that cold Coca-Cola. Then someone appears saying that perhaps the Lu University is afraid of facing our protagonist's university. It was very likely since everyone was avoiding him. At this moment, one of the directors appears, commenting that the University of Zhangzhou wasn't being completely excluded and that they would participate in the championships at some point. He asks them to continue. Meanwhile, the director and teacher were already happy because if this continued, they would reach the third world, the final stage. If they got there, it would be easier than ever to win. While they were happy, the protagonist was sad because he saw the fights that would bring him many military merits passing by, and he hadn't participated in any so far. After an hour, we see everyone happy, saying that now the final match of the competition zone was about to begin. The next participants would now be from the University of Zhangzhou, our hero's team. Finally, it was their turn. Now it was time to use everything they had to win these championships. Although they were lucky, they couldn't rely 100% on luck. The director ends up pointing to Lo and another to Ning. These two would be the first to participate in the final test. The director continues to choose, and lastly, Su Ba would be the final participant. With the lineup chosen, we see Su Ba extremely sad, realizing that his plans had ultimately failed, and he wouldn't be able to earn any military merits. However, the first fight begins with Lu fighting against a bronze-level opponent. After a tough fight, he almost loses. The second to climb onto the stage is Baining, who starts fighting in a brutal style, causing his opponent to retreat significantly. Next is Huang Qing, one of the school's beauties, who demonstrates her skills in combat. Summing up, she uses a whip to lash her opponents. After a long fight, their university wins. With victory in sight, we see the happiness of everyone except Su Ba, who wonders when his turn will come. However, now the second-to-last participant takes the stage, Hu Qing. He ends up asking Su Ba to hurry and get on stage because they were basically wasting time with this useless fight he was about to have. Saying this, the two climb onto the stage. At this moment, a girl announces that this championship allows two opponents to step onto the stage simultaneously, provided the opposing side agrees. With that, they could finally begin the fight. Meanwhile, in the background, we see Su Ba wondering if his opponent would really give him a chance. Returning to the protagonist, he apologizes for taking so long. Then he activates his cultivation, showcasing his ability. His ability is a supernatural type, wood type. As he explains this, he begins moving his forces toward his opponents. He mentions that this type of ability won't last long, so he only needs to endure. Meanwhile, in the background, we see that the wood-type user's ability was something even he hadn't seen before. However, his ability allows him to defeat his opponents without much effort. The director in the background notices that his power had increased significantly. Meanwhile, the spectators also realize that he was a very promising individual from the University of Zhangzhou. However, they still believe that Su Ba was stronger than this guy, but that wasn't the focus. Returning to the fight, we find the two cornered. They realize that after a long time they still couldn't find even a single weakness. But at this moment, he then used his leaves to put an end to this game once and for all, throwing both opponents out of the ring minutes later. Then, after winning, Robert Vamos appears on the big screen, saying that he was among the penultimate to win this championship. Then he ends up stepping out of the ring. Din congratulates him, but adds that the true hero of the group was still about to step into the ring. This was our Su Ba. He can't believe it. A hero. He became a hero. However, the director ignores this and ends up saying that thanks to our protagonist, they managed to reach the finals. Having fought, they are exhausted, so he asks his students to rest since they still have another fight ahead. Because of their participation, the military will grant him some very good rewards that will help them in their training. At this moment, Su Ba realizes that he will have to return empty-handed. He will need to find a way to obtain resources. Meanwhile, at the Lin family mansion, we see the girl training, but he ends up appearing and telling her to stop training for a bit because it was time to eat. She tells her uncle to wait a little longer. After seeing Su Ba participating in the championships, she started training a bit more herself. She didn't even take a single day off to rest. Meanwhile, there were some important things she could have been doing, but she only wanted to focus on activities that would help her training progress faster. Her uncle ends up feeling a bit sad because there were basically important matters for her to address. And for some reason, she ended up refusing specific marriage proposals with some powerful individuals who could have helped her clan evolve perfectly. However, she declined them all with a single word. He doesn't really know what Suba gave her to make her reach this situation. And today we bring you a new continuation of our story. So it continues the next day, or rather 7 days later. We see him arriving in the magical city. In this place, there were many people, including some very happy ones, surprised by the location they found themselves in. Some were even more astonished seeing this university up close than on the internet. While some found it luxurious, our protagonist, on the other hand, thought that whoever built it spent billions and billions of an. For him, it was a waste. More than just billions, the materials alone cost 1.8 billion. Not to mention the gate, which was constructed in just 1 day with the help of some gold-level specialists, a few silver-level ones, and some regular workers working together. Yet, the director commented that what they did was just a simple thing. He recalled that Magic CS built this school gate to show everyone the spirit that only the strongest trainers could be here to protect the weaker ones. As he was walking, someone appeared at the gate and thanked him for coming to their university. He then introduced himself as Zhang Ming, the vice president of the student council, and welcomed them to the martial arts university. After giving his welcome, he asked them to follow him. That said, we then returned to those two at the back, who commented that this university was mocking them for only sending a vice president to invite their school director to come and visit Magic Soar's university. This left him irritated since he bet that if it were someone from the Imperial Martial University, the director of that university would likely come personally to invite him. Ignoring these two completely, they entered, where we see our heroes surprised by the size of the construction. The director commented that this was the training field of this university. Soon, our protagonist pointed out that if their university had this training field, they could train people to reach silver level in just 1 year. This comment irritated the director, but he said nothing because the vice president interrupted him, saying that this was the hotel where they would be staying. On the first floor, they could eat as much as they wanted. Just go there. Entering the cafeteria, they could eat wild monster meat prepared by the best chefs. Whoever ate it would experience a massive evolution in their training, significantly accelerating their growth. And the best part was, there was no limit. You could eat as much as you wanted. This made our protagonist even more interested in the school. But now he asked the vice president if everything was truly unlimited. The vice president, responding, said that he had come from afar, and people who come from afar couldn't simply stay in a fancy place like this and go hungry. In summary, he could go inside and eat to his heart's content. Then he left, saying that Char and X-Pie were basically a good meal a little while ago, leaving the director and vice president baffled as to why he went in that direction. Ignoring this, they wondered if this junior was starving for some reason. Another person revealed that he wasn't, but their turtle was the one who decided to eat and just wouldn't stop. In the end, seeing that Suba was indeed heading toward the food, they became interested too, deciding to make the most of it. Everyone rushed because they didn't want to go hungry that night, so they went there. But now the scene cuts to another day. We then find our protagonist entering the stadium. Looking around, he noticed the stadium was full. Personally, he never thought this would happen, as he had only ever seen this scene on television. But the director asked them to pay more attention, since they were about to witness something never seen before. The director began explaining the rules, as this competition would be the final one, where the best schools would compete. However, there was a certain university that received a free pass, which left everyone upset since they didn't even participate in any events. But the answer was simple. They were allied with important military figures, meaning there was something behind the scenes. This left the students suspicious, But the director explained that this academy was one where all students went to the front lines of combat to face monsters, since they also couldn't know one thing. This is the only university capable of fighting monsters. And since they stay on the front lines fighting monsters, this is nothing to them, as fighting powerful monsters was something they did as a warm-up in the morning. Hearing this, those two couldn't believe it. They stay on the front lines of combat, leaving everyone surprised and happy to know that a university of geniuses existed. Thus, the director concluded by saying that now they couldn't back down, as this championship was filled with talent. He especially warned them not to underestimate anyone, and especially Suba. Now, Suba will be taking the lead, and the one who was supposed to be considered the leader before will now be the anchor of the team. After all, with these two leading the team, the Zhangzhou Martial University will win this competition more easily than they had imagined. However, a girl appears on the big screen, telling everyone to calm down because the finals of the 100 schools tournament are about to begin. She asks all event participants to appear, as the draw event is starting. Once the school is drawn, they will be able to participate in 3 universities simultaneously. After the draw ends, the director is happy to see that, in the first round, they somehow did not face any schools yet, but they ended up against a university called Okama, which for some reason is on the same level as them. Then he asks the director to let him fight first, but our protagonist interrupts, saying he wants to be the first. At this moment, he wants to show everyone the power of Zhangzhou University. Everyone agrees, and the first match is about to begin. Suba steps onto the stage, and then a side character appears, saying he wanted to meet Suba, but it's no use. This university only managed to get here, but it will only go this far. Now, the strongest will defeat our protagonist. At the end, the opponent asks our hero to make the first move. Suba calls for Sha to appear and end it quickly. Taking out the Pokeball, Sha emerges, letting out a loud roar. When the turtle is revealed, the audience goes wild, seeing that Zhangzhou University sent a beast tamer to fight in this championship. Moreover, seeing that turtle up close, it looks slightly larger than they had seen before. While some find the creature cute, they wish Suba good luck. The opponent, who had been a bit arrogant until then, is left in disbelief. Now he realizes this monster is much bigger than he thought. Before, he thought it was small. Looking closer, it's a titan. But before the fight starts, our protagonist just wants to enjoy his peanuts and Coke. However, he doesn't get the chance. Sha throws the opponent out, and he screams that it was unfair. Meanwhile, our protagonist didn't even get to drink his Coke or eat his peanuts. Seeing his opponent defeated on the ground, the side character, who thought fighting a beast tamer would be easy, realizes it's not. The audience comments that Zhangzhou University brought a very interesting competitor this time. Maybe the championship won't be as boring as in previous years. Now looking at the turtle, they notice how massive it is. Its defense is probably enormous. Someone even remarks that having such a beast would likely crush bronze-level adventurers easily. Now, the next fight is about to begin. Upon entering the ring, the opponent comments that Zhangzhou University is humiliating them, but says they won't let it happen and will make them pay. However, the protagonist simply continues eating his peanuts and Coke while reading some new chapters of interesting mangas. Even so, there isn't time for much else. Sha breathes in the opponent's direction, easily defeating them. This time, the audience notices that not only did the protagonist bring peanuts and Coke, but also a stool. Perhaps Suba has reached another level, a level where he just watches the fights while humiliating his opponents. While the spectators find this a bit unfair, they let it slide. Meanwhile, the director is happy, but wonders how he will face the director of Yokohama Martial Arts University. Suddenly, the latter appears behind him and tells him not to celebrate too early. Looking toward another area where a fight is happening, we discover that Yokohama University also has a captain. This captain, however, is no ordinary weakling. In this fight, the man in red easily defeats his opponent without any difficulty. Afterward, he apologizes for taking so long to defeat him. The director immediately recognizes him as someone with a fire ranked as a silver level. Wondering how they will defeat him, someone in the audience comments that, without interference from the Great Wall Guardians, only the Magic CS Martial Arts University could possibly compete against these people from Yokohama. While they marvel at the side character, the scene returns to our hero, who once again defeats another person from a rival university. Then another one appears, asking their director for permission to fight and see if they can deal with Suba quickly. It is possible then that the director Concord asks him to use his speed. At the same time, he comments that this guy from the University of Su will be experiencing for the first time someone who fought against such powerful monsters. Then he steps onto the stage where now the new opponent Su-bi faces Minku. As the match is about to start, Minku begins by saying that he was very lucky to fight against weak people. But now the story will change from here on out, as this Zhangzhou University will not have luck anymore either. However, our protagonist grabs another cold soda, looks at his classification, and realizes he was a wind attribute user. His ranking was silver, but that's not much, right? He heads to the bar as quickly as possible and messes around with that guy over there so that the fight would end as quickly as possible, leaving this guy completely irritated. After getting irritated, the guy demands that at least this turtle and Suba feel the power of the wind. At that moment, someone who was at the silver level was about to put on quite a show for a certain guy who so far had considered himself the strongest and most arrogant. At that moment, he launches that wind in Subi's direction, but Cha interferes and steps in. However, this guy knew that this mere wind would not take down that turtle. So he moves in his direction and starts using wind cuts to take down our Suba once and for all, as his speed couldn't compare to the other extras he had fought before. Then he wishes for Suba to go to another world. He now launches a cut in our protagonist's direction. That wind will make him feel the full force of it, as if placing him where he always belonged, in the trash. Thus, the cutting wind heads in his direction and hits him completely. At that moment, smoke begins to rise, obscuring the entire scene. After those wind cuts, he apologizes, saying he went a little overboard with the cuts, and apologizes for that. He adds that once he returns and rests, it's likely he'll have a rematch with this guy in the future. But as the smoke clears, our protagonist is seen standing completely fine, leaving him puzzled. Looking at him, he realizes he used skill synchronization. How is that possible? He essentially learned the ability of the Tamer Lao, one of the strongest tamers in the world. The wind ability user finds it interesting to see that he was overly confident in his own abilities. So, since he really wants to play with speed, he calls out to our Shay and asks him to enter. He then pulls out a little kitten as he also wants to play along with speed. Finally, he says Shay can finally come out of the bag to fight. As soon as he reveals the kitten, everyone clearly goes wild, including that guy mocking Suba for bringing a kitten to the fight. He even asks if he's joking with him. Soon, the audience watching is also surprised to see that Suba is bringing Shay to a fight. Perhaps it's some joke he's playing on his opponent. Taking the joke aside, they start finding the kitten a bit cuter than normal, with some even wishing they had one like that. Meanwhile, his group begins to wonder what Suba was doing there. After previously mocking his opponent, he now brought in a pet. This suggests his mockery has reached a new level, as he even brought a pet to the fight. Then, someone turns to the director and asks if that kitten could do anything since the opponent was a wind tamer. The director just asks them to relax, saying the cat there isn't an ordinary cat. Having removed the turtle from the fight, he wonders what he'll do now. But now, in the ring, Suba asks Shay to fight but not to hit too hard, as he cannot kill. As soon as he says this, we observe an enormous shadow appearing in front of the kitten, which frightens the opponent a bit. He begins thinking that just now he imagined a giant tiger in front of him. But no, he assumes it was all part of his imagination. However, he continues to hear the roaring until he looks ahead, where he sees a tiger in front of him. He is startled by this and shouts that there is a tiger in the ring. As the tiger faces this guy, they start to fight. In the background, we just see people watching the fight. Some realize that it's a white tiger, while others comment that they've only seen such a tiger at the zoo, but never one of this size. We then return to his group, where one of them can't believe it, a kitten turning into a tiger. What did Suba do to make that happen? Soon, one of the smarter ones comments that Suba must also have a second pet. He is surprised, and his group is even more so, as it's difficult for a silver-level tamer to tame such an animal. How could he tame an animal if he isn't even at the silver level? The director simply comments that it seems Suba has some secrets that haven't been revealed to the public. At that moment, Suba's opponent attacks, sending that attack toward the tiger, slicing it completely. At this point, thinking he finally defeated the tiger, he realizes he didn't succeed because what he cut was just a hologram of the tiger. Only later do they question how a tiger can be so fast and how it can also surpass the wind ability. He can't believe such a thing while watching the tiger circling beside him. But then, he looks to the other side, where he sees our protagonist sipping his Coca-Cola while simultaneously eating his ham sandwich. Now that he found him, and the tiger was distracted using its maximum speed, he could take the opportunity to defeat him. So he heads toward him as quickly as possible to try to catch him. But at that moment, the tiger appears in front of him, with its paw raised, lifting it high. In disbelief, he can only say it's impossible before receiving a single swipe from the tiger, which moments later sends him flying out of the ring. He lands near the ring, causing a massive explosion outside. Now, everyone celebrates and comments that Subar has once again defeated a new opponent. The crowd is left speechless, seeing how a bronze-level fighter defeated a silver-level one. They also fail to notice, as does Subar, the near-complete mastery he has over his animal. One of the girls in the audience notices that the tiger cat, for some reason, seemed a bit stronger than that turtle. But at this moment, no one wanted to comment on it, as no one dared to test the strength of the two animals. So, they simply end up shouting Subar's name. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the judges, where some of them ask who this Subar is. Some comment that Subar is from JZU University, a name they had never heard of before. They also note that the fight they witnessed was incredible, saying even the best students from the strongest university couldn't compare in strength to him. Now it becomes clear that this year, ZZU Martial Arts University has created a monster, and it's highly likely he will reach the Pleta mark, a level no adventurer has ever reached in this world. Meanwhile, the scene transitions to a resting area, where we find two people talking about that guy, the country bumpkin who keeps defeating everyone with his two pets. This bumpkin supposedly only entered to get access to the buffets and fancy places, yet no one like him has ever been seen before. At this moment, we see someone in the background saying they should let that guy enjoy himself for now. He seemed arrogant when facing weaker opponents, but once he steps into the ring for the semi-finals, it's very likely he'll end up humiliating Subar. Then Zuar comments that he'll beat him to death since at this point, they realize that aside from humiliation, this bumpkin has been stealing all the fame for himself, something they're not happy about. All continues with that extra trying to mock the protagonist, just as the protagonist of Zangu University managed to defeat another opponent, like Tigran. Shortly after, he easily knocks down another opponent, throwing her out of the ring. Then, Zangu University secures yet another victory without suffering a single defeat. Meanwhile, the audience keeps chanting for Subai, and throughout all of this, the director watches with a more than perfect reaction. Everything he had wished for was happening, thanks to Subai. It was also thanks to Subai that their university had reached the top. Eventually, a group approaches Subai, thanking him. Some of them even start wondering which university would be crazy enough to want to face Zangu University now. After the students' praises, we see the director approaching Subai. He seems somewhat pleased because the boy did not disappoint him. After a while, he pulls the protagonist aside to a bench and thanks him again, as they had now managed to place their university at the top. Thanks to this, they could now repay the protagonist, not just him, but everyone in the university as well. At that moment, the protagonist pauses and thinks. He had just mentioned that if they faced the next universities, they could earn more rewards. The protagonist saw profit in this, as he could earn some billions. Director Prado tells him to relax, They were already in the top 6, but now they had reached the top 4. At that moment, he even asks if the protagonist wanted to challenge the next universities, which were a bit stronger. Then someone considered the strongest appears, saying that if he continues, he will be facing the top 3, top 2, and top 1. The protagonist wonders, why not? After all, looking at that gate, the one that took billions to build at Zangu University, he notices that other universities don't have such an incredible gate. His goal is to reach the top one, so they can build a gate just as good. The one considered the strongest supports Subai. He wants to participate in his plans because they all want to become stronger too. The others even realize that the protagonist has truly become the captain, and they like that. Now, understanding that reaching the top one is necessary, the director doesn't even hesitate. He orders all the students present to return to their dorms and rest, for tomorrow would be the day Zangu University would conquer the top spot. With that said, they leave. The director is surprised. These kids have grown so much. Now they were aiming to face the top 3. However, the scene shifts to a certain location within the military command. There, they discuss various matters, one of them being the ongoing event. From this event, some incredible individuals would emerge, and by the end, they would be placed on the front lines to fight against the monsters. Stronger monsters had started appearing. To conclude, H stands up and declares that once the League of the 100 Universities ends, their counterattack against the beasts will begin at full force. Only then will the best students be able to fight the powerful monsters. Naturally, everyone present agrees with the idea. They will wait until the end of the championship. Then, they will see what happens. The scene changes to the next day at a hotel. Many people are there, but inside the hotel, we find the protagonist cultivating, while below him, his pets devour their food. After a good cultivation session, he opens his eyes and suddenly shouts to activate the sacred beast armament. Upon activating it, he ends up falling, face first into a plate where Xiaobai was eating his meal. After waking up in such a way, he gets up and wonders what just happened. He then looks at the system, where something new is displayed. He has unlocked the teleportation ability. This ability works in a simple way. He can swap places with his beast, no matter the location. Turning to the side, he notices Xiaobai on the couch. He doesn't fully understand, but he realizes that teleportation is instantaneous. However, he can't stay here any longer. This ability needs further development, as it is quite interesting. Now, he grabs his pets and leaves his room. The kid is determined to reach the top one. He won't leave this challenge until he does. After some time, the championship advances to the quarterfinals. A girl explains that, after a long wait, they will finally witness a real fight in the arena. Stepping up is the university that has held the front lines against the dangerous beasts. Since 1907, they were one of the first to establish a base in the beast's territory. Rumors say that to this day, they have never lost a single time. Moreover, they have a clear mindset: fight until death. They cannot retreat because in this academy, there is only one person in the world who has reached the Grandmaster King classification. No monster dared to remain in his territory, as all were defeated. There are also rumors that this academy only accepts top-tier heroes, meaning weak heroes never even think about enrolling. That's why their current team has only 5 members. Some wonder why there are only 5. What if one of them dies? However, someone reassures them, saying that this team is one of the strongest and doesn't need substitutes. Meanwhile, Ilara is thrilled to see that they are considering fighting against someone ranked as a king. The protagonist, on the other hand, starts to wonder, could he someday reach that classification as well? But the girl up there ends up kind of announcing in the draw the schools that will be Lutran against Trisha. The first one is stronger. The second will be another one fighting against the University of Zhangzhou. This university is the same as that annoying guy, Rini. He feels sad to see that he will be fighting against a very weak university. The girls around start mocking. The fact that the Zhangzhou University will fight against them might even be a regret or an insult, because fighting against them would be way too easy. While they keep talking and mocking, the scene shifts to the fight, where the first opponent is the one wearing purple armor. Everyone says he is very strong, and as soon as he steps onto the stage, he asks not to waste time since Huang didn't want to waste time there either. Here, he is introduced. He is the captain of the Grand Moralia Military Academy, and now he is facing the great Ruang University. Those watching all of this were excited because the fight would be worthy. As soon as he said that, one of his opponents stepped onto the stage, and here he is introduced as the captain of the Martial University, Hang. He even comments that it has been a while since he last fought. When he says that, the girls on stage become completely infatuated with him. But this doesn't last long because the protagonist interrupts everything. He wonders why the girls are looking at this guy, but the director is thinking about how incredible this fight will be. To start, he points at someone and tells him to enter the ring and be the first to step up. Being weak, he ends up refusing. But the fight begins. We then see him preparing. He asks that this guy from the other university, Huang, make the first move against him. And there, the first fight begins. We see that this guy advances with his spear in hand. His goal is to take down his opponent with that armor. As soon as he moves forward, several clones of him appear, forming a type of spear that targets the opponent. However, that doesn't work at all because he manages to dodge and defend himself from every move. Now, looking at them, they realize that Huang used extreme speed to try to defeat his opponent, but it seems that even that was not enough. Observing from the background, the protagonist notices that their strength is at mid-level silver, while his own strength is at mid-level bronze. But ignoring that, we see the fight unfolding. Noticing that the fight was getting somewhat dull and slow, he decides to grab his spear. The moment he grips the spear, that sword kind of freezes everyone in the middle of that arena. Only afterward does he step back, knowing he couldn't do anything else standing still. Now, we see the director saying that this power used is one of his strongest. After all, he even used this power to kill a diamond-level monster, and it also forced Wang to stop fighting against him. While others comment that his ability is one of the best, we then see that guy down there getting more and more irritated. To end the fight, he will use his ability. Using this ability, he charges toward his opponent. But at that moment, when he does this, he prepares his spear. Now, up close, he realizes that his opponent wanted to have a direct confrontation. He now considers it certain that he will lose this fight. Then both of them seemingly agree. An explosion happens. What we see next is Wang being thrown into the air. He was easily knocked down. Looking at the scene, they now realize that the guy used the blade on the back of his sword. If he had used that other blade, most likely, Wang would now just be a corpse. As everyone comments that he just lost, we see him in the arena with his weapon all bent. Then, he stands up and admits that he really lost and cannot fight anymore. Thus, it is announced that the first fight had its first winner, and the winner was from the Martial Military School. But looking at him, it is clear that Huang's attack was not weak. He even trembled a little. Now that the fight is over, we see them commenting that the first battle has ended. However, the director interrupts them, saying that they will be next. He then asks Lu Hong to get ready because they are the next ones stepping onto the stage. As they step onto the stage, Rod comments that if he happens not to be able to defeat his opponent, it would be simple, just give up. After all, within the group, there were people eager to fight in this tournament. He then advances confidently. The second fight is about to begin. Looks at him, he knows this fight will be interesting. He even thinks about playing around with this guy a little. However, before he can say anything, the opponent states that this will be his end. He is going to lose right now. Then he charges forward with his sword. But before he could grab him, he dodged to the side, and as soon as he dodged, he managed to make several cuts. Only after making the cuts did he comment that he needed to endure a little longer because he hadn't finished playing yet. The guy got up and went toward him again, but he dodged the attack and made some more cuts on him. At that moment, the director appeared, thinking of throwing something there to make him give up. But the protagonist interrupted, saying to wait a little since he was putting his dignity on the line to defend Zanzu University. After saying that, we see him on the stage, practically defeated. He only asked him to admit defeat, but he said that Zhu University would never stoop to that point. Since he refused to admit defeat, the protagonist took his sword and stabbed him a little. However, he would never take a step back. If that was the case, he wanted to see how far this guy could go. But after several blows, he could no longer hold on. He didn't want to give up, but his body gave up on its own. He blacked out and then fell to the ground. After the fight ended, the woman announced that the first opponent to be defeated was from Zanggu University. Meanwhile, people on the stage commented that there was no need for such torture. But ignoring that, the protagonist started preparing since the next fight was about to begin. The one stepping onto the stage now was Bain Ning. He wanted to avenge his companion, who had been humiliated in front of everyone. As soon as he stepped onto the stage, that guy started mocking him, saying he had found his next toy to play with, and so the second round began. The moment it started, he charged toward his opponent with his sword. He tried something, but once again his opponent dodged his attack with ease. Dodging the blow, he quickly stood up in a swift motion that almost got him, but he managed to defend himself for a few minutes. In the background, we see the fight unfolding. Both were practically on the same level, but from a distance it seemed like it would end in a draw. Meanwhile, some people commented that they smelled a strong scent of blood. The reason was simple. In the fight, both were cutting themselves to win. He started messing with his opponent's head, but it didn't do much. So Ray launched a strike that almost hit him, but he managed to dodge, disappearing. He wondered where he had gone until, a moment later, he appeared behind him. He was about to be caught, but he used his sword to defend himself. At this point, looking at him, he asked him to give up. His level was bronze. What was a guy like that doing in the ring? To be specific, he had already played around with him enough, but now it was time to end. He grabbed his sword for a powerful finishing strike. He told Zanggu University to go back to where they came from. But to win, we see him taking his sword and moving slowly until he managed to pierce him. He had pierced him and also himself. His opponent, now in this situation, was surprised and wondered if he was trying to kill himself. On the other hand, he started laughing and then said that if he were really going to die, he wanted to take him down with him. After all, he was intimidating the weak. If he was really so afraid of the weak, then why now was he begging him not to do this? He then started shouting for someone to come and save him. At that moment, someone appeared from the background and interrupted the attack. He placed his hand there, signaling that the fight had been interrupted. After it was interrupted, Zanggu Martial University admitted defeat. On the big screen, they couldn't believe it. Seeing this, the director ran onto the stage and went toward Niang. After that, the director of Zanggu University commented that the other university's director had made a stupid decision by allowing his fighter to risk his life like that. But as he was saying that, we see the director commenting that he had made it to the top 4. However, reaching the top 4 meant nothing. It wasn't a joke. After all, the top 3 and top 2 already belonged to specific universities. As they left, they commented that everyone inside Madura University was completely insane. Instead of resolving this fight here, he ends up commenting that it would be better to settle this fight in the arena. Knowing that none of his students are strong enough, he shouts for Subar. He asks for Subar to step onto the stage and only then wreak havoc on this university. He can hit as much as he wants. If that's really what they want, then so be it. The protagonist claps his hands and says that, yes, he is doing them a favor by causing destruction in this other university. He is taken away to another location. Meanwhile, we see the directors commenting that he was a hero. He put his honor first, which means that everything was worth it. Elsewhere, he asks the director to let him step onto the stage because he wanted to take down those trash from that university. Zanggu tells him to relax because his opponent is a little stronger. In the ring now, the protagonist shouts that Subai will win against that university. In the end, a very formal apology needed to be made to Zhangzhou University for what had been done to him. At the moment he says this, we see the people on the stage happy to know that now there was someone at the same level to face these kinds of people. Knowing that he was going to put him in his place, we see people commenting. Then suddenly, a guy appears saying that he could step onto the stage, that he could finish off that guy from Zhangzhou University. The director agrees, and so he steps onto the stage. On the stage, the protagonist asks if by any chance he came here to apologize, but he says no. The real apology he wants to make is with his fist in his face. However, the protagonist, on the other hand, ends up asking for someone stronger to be sent in. This guy isn't even worth the trouble. He wanted to play around a little more with his opponents, and he doesn't even know if this guy will last 2 seconds in the ring. The people watching all of this thought Subar was being a little arrogant for asking for a stronger opponent to enter the ring. After all, Madu University was one of the strongest, and there was no need to insist that stronger opponents should step in. However now, with the protagonist proving everyone wrong, we see the director feeling firsthand what it's like to be humiliated. He then points toward this guy and asks him to step into the ring and show his full power, the power of this university. Now, 2 from Madu University are facing him. After all, he had requested that Madu University send 2 of their own to fight the protagonist. Now, his end is near. He won't even be able to move after this fight. After saying this, he summons an aura so intense that we later discover it comes from his sword. This sword was built with some extremely rare equipment, making it incredibly powerful. Moreover, these weapons were among the most expensive. However, interrupting all of this, we see him asking the protagonist to prepare himself. He will give the protagonist time to bring out his beasts, otherwise he won't be able to do anything. But the protagonist thanks him and says no, he won't do that. After all, he won't need his pets to deal with these 2 weaklings. At this point, he starts mocking this weak tamer. However, in the background, the director notices that he has managed to activate Origin synchronization. A companion of his even wonders what Subai was planning. But returning to the fight, we see him advancing toward the protagonist. Because he was too arrogant, he will meet his end as quickly as possible. But the protagonist tells them